Howdy, howdy, weirdos! This is Cbass here once again, saying thank you to everyone for coming and hanging out with me for a bit while I paint some models. So I hope everybody had a fantastic Gen Con. For those who weren't able to attend, I hope you had a great time like me, reading about all the good stuff that was being unveiled by all of our favorite makers and creators. And I was very fortunate to get a little bit of a care package from Wyrd. So tonight, we're going to change things up a little bit. Instead of working on Lenny, we're going to work on Samantha Thrace. So I was very happy to get this model from Wyrd, along with another friend that's still being prepped right now. So hopefully we'll get him on the stream at a future date. But this is the new Samantha Thrace model. So she is a brand new champion that'll be coming out, I believe, in October, along with the other side starter box. Not in the starter box, but as a separate champion you can get for the Guild Syndicates. So really, really happy with this model. Like all the other side stuff, she comes pre-assembled. And this model did not require a whole lot of prep. She did have some mold lines, but they came off pretty easily with a hobby knife. I don't use a fancy hobby knife either. I just use those like, I think Excel is the company that makes those, the standard knives that like almost everyone uses. Just remove the mold lines with a X-Acto, and yeah, just one little gap on her shoulder that just needed a little bit of filling, and she was, you know, absolutely just perfect for painting at that point. So let's get into it. And you can see that I got her started already, namely just putting down some base coats, so you all don't have to sit through the watching paint dry phase of painting the model. So I started out by giving her a zenithal primer layer. Basically just, you know, give her a black primer coat with Vallejo Surface Primer Black, and then gave her a little bit of a dusting with Vallejo Surface Primer Gray using the airbrush. And then I did one more layer with the airbrush, which was actually her coat. So all of the red on her coat, I gave that a little bit of a spritz with some Vallejo Game color, Gory Red, or Rojo Visceral. And that's pretty much it for the airbrushing at that point. Yeah, her shirts, that's just another Vallejo model color. That is, I believe, pale gray blue. Her skin was base coated with Vallejo model color beige red. And her boots and all the leathers are with Vallejo model color German camo black brown. The axe is just a bit of a base coat with some Vallejo model color basalt gray. And all of the her pants, her breeches, are done with a Reaper Master Series color, which I believe is illegible on this label because I've been treating it with a lot of love, but it is Shield Brown, if you can even read that. All right, so let's get into painting her up. So I think I'm going to start in a few places. One, I want to start working up her skin tone, and then I want to start working up the coat, since that is one of the most prominent parts of her. So I'm going to start by painting some shadows into her skin. And to do this, I'm going to use some Vallejo model color Hull Red. So this is actually a color that I like to use a lot. For a lot of things, I like using it for rust effects as a base coat before I do apply those. Blech. However, it's a very thick color, so it requires a lot of shaking. So I feel like I should get a vortex shaker. But yeah, you can kind of, not sure if you can see on the palette, but it is a very, very thick paint, this one. More so than a lot of Vallejo colors. So I'm going to add just a little drop of water here, so we can get it thinned out a bit. Let's see. And what brush do I want to use here? I'm going to be painting the shadows on her face, so I'm actually going to be using just this Zero Round. It's not a fancy brush. It's not one of the Phalanx brushes. I've actually been practicing a lot more with the Phalanx brushes since I used them on last stream, and I've definitely gotten used to them. I think more the issue is that they definitely are much finer tip brushes. They definitely have like skinnier bases to them, so they don't really come across like the brushes I usually use, which are just those, you know, pretty much standard art brushes. Great looking model. Well, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll make her look even better. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just doing kind of a heavy shadow with some of the, with this Hull Red. Let's make sure I got her on frame over there. There we go. So I'm pretty much just kind of being very heavy with this. Kind of painting all of the like corners where there might be some shadows. So pretty much kind of along her forehead, in her eye sockets, kind of on the sides of her nose. Not too concerned if I get kind of extra on places. Just going to pretty much rebuild that base layer once this paint dries. So kind of going there around her ears, around her hairline, and definitely kind of trying to get a little bit under her chin, and then around her neck. All right. So that's pretty much what we've got going on for that layer. We want to wait for that paint to dry a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do in the meantime is apply some shadows to her coat. And the color I'm going to use for that is, it's actually a Reaper Master Series color. It's Eldritch Purple. Hey, thank you, Tiago Rosado, for liking the stream. Wherever you're listening from, I'm going to say muchas gracias. And hope you're having a good time wherever you are. All right, so I'm going to use the Eldritch Purple to paint in some shadows on her coat. I think I actually want to use a bigger brush for this one. So I'm going to switch over to a #1 round. This is just another kind of standard artist brush I'm using here. Not really going into deep details yet that I feel like pulling out the phalanx brushes. Oh, did we lose the image? All right, well, just kind of, let's see, we get that back. All right, I'm seeing something. See if I can get that on frame. Okay. Hopefully the paint didn't dry on my brush while I was waiting for that to get in focus. All right, there we go. So I'm going to apply some of this purple pretty much along some of these creases on her jacket. And I really like this particular color for shading red. Something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about when painting red is that you can use purple to shade it. Red is one of my favorite colors to paint, and I think that's because when you're painting it, you can apply a lot of different colors to it. So typically, when I paint red, if I feel like mixing things up a bit, I don't necessarily, use like a triad or something like you'd get for Citadel paints or maybe a Reaper triad. More so, I like to, base with my reds, shade with purples, and then when I start to get in those very stark highlights, I might go into some yellows potentially, which is kind of what you kind of see in a lot of those triad paints. Oftentimes, they will pretty much kind of, the highest highlight color they'll give you is usually an orange of some type, and orange is nothing but, red with yellow mixed in it. So yellow is pretty much a color that's really good for highlighting red, but you can use very stark yellows for some edge highlights on red and get really good results with that. So right now, again, being kind of heavy-handed, just kind of going over with this Eldritch Purple. It's thinned down a pretty good amount. I don't want this to be too thick because otherwise it'll just kind of fill in those details. And you can kind of see that the airbrush already kind of gave it a, kind of a nice, kind of some nice natural highlights as well, which can also serve as a good guide here. So just going to try to get that in there. And also, I'm just going to kind of hit underneath her arm with the purple. Not sure how well you can see that, but since since I did a zenithal primer, obviously, a lot of the area under her arm is still a little bit black. So kind of covering it with some of that purple, and then rebuilding gives a gives a nice effect, because obviously that airbrush is going to have a hard time hitting everything consistently. But also, I'm not going to necessarily, put a zenithal on those areas underneath because they're supposed to be darker. Hey, Nathan Carolyn, thank you for liking the stream. Senpai noticed me. All right. Let's see. Ooh, I wish I wasn't getting, kind of a delay there because I want to be sure I can see what you're seeing in real time there. All right. Okay. So let me wash the brush off a bit, get a little more of that Eldritch Purple in there, and start painting a little bit under this coat. So I don't think that necessarily everything under this coat needs to be painted because, you're not going to see it. But I am going to paint along the edges of it because some of those will show a little bit. Let's also get a little bit under here. I'm not too concerned if I get purple on that white because, surprise, surprise, I'm actually going to use some purple colors to shade the white. Purple is just such a great color. It's just so freaking versatile. It's like, oh, you want to shade something? Put a little purple in it. You want to weather something? Mix a little purple pigment in it. See what happens. I actually had the pleasure of going to a game store, not really a game store, but a hobby shop a couple weeks ago. Sadly, they're currently closed. The couple that runs the store had actually they decided to retire, and so they were liquidating their entire stock at the store. And so by the time I got there, pretty much a lot of things were sold out, but some they had a lot of were weathering pigments. So, they had so many weathering pigments that normally sell for like, $7. They were selling these for, dirt cheap. It was like $1.50 for a lot of these like weathering pigments. So it was a really great find. And one that I'm really intrigued to use, there's this one called Graveyard Earth. I don't remember exactly what the company is that made it. It's a company with a very long German name that starts with an A, something like, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. And this Graveyard Earth pigment, it's like a brownish purple weathering, like pigment. And so I just saw that and I thought, oh, I know there's so many things I want to put this on for weathering. Because usually a lot of purple are a little too bright, but that was just like a really cool pigment. Let's see. So personally, I'm a King's Empire player. Can't wait to bring Thrace onto the table. Yep, as I've said before, I'm looking to start a King's Army force, and Thrace just fits in quite naturally. I think, stylistically, she kind of fits in with King's Army. And also, she's got a couple of really nice abilities. The big thing that she has, actually, I have her card off camera. If you want to take a look at it, feel free to let me know. But I really love her ability. She has this one that's just kind of called Get In There. Basically, when she activates a fire team within 8 inches of her, she can give them a reinforcement token. So she's really nice at kind of extending the longevity of some of your fire teams. But at the same time, she also has another ability in which if fire teams die within like 6 inches of her, or if a fire team dies, she gets to draw a card. So, she can benefit from units getting knocked off the board, and she also is good at providing some potential reinforcements. So she's really good in that regard, and her melee ability is really nice. Her axe is quite devastating, and she has a trigger on it that's like a sidearm. Let's see, in the chat, I'm seeing sounds like it's made by Abtelong. Yes, that is exactly right. It is that company. I managed to get a couple of those pigments, which I love going to like a lot of hobby shops that cater more to like high-end scale modeling, because you can tend to find a lot of really interesting things there that you don't necessarily find at a lot of game stores. Let's see what we got going on. I'd love to play, but Murfreesboro, Tennessee is kind of drawing the Malifaux or other side players. Oh, yeah, that is unfortunate when you kind of are in an area where there's not a lot of play going on. The only solace I can offer is if you want to try Vassal. Yeah, me personally, like, I prefer just playing with the tangible things. So I'm not really, I haven't really gotten into Vassal all that much, but I really appreciate what it's done to kind of really help keep the community alive during COVID. So either way, I'm hoping you can get some games out there. Or if not, I hope you can at least find some alternatives, either Vassal or Tabletop Simulator, and what have you. All right. Okay, so I think that the shading on her jacket is looking pretty decent. Actually, there's one little area I kind of want to get over here, kind of under her, under her armpit there, that kind of goes over there. So I'm gonna get a little more of that purple and go over it. But yeah, speaking of other side, if anyone was watching, keeping an eye on Gen Con, we're getting some new allegiances, which is very exciting. So we're getting one that, I'm not surprised by this allegiance, but it's really great to see it coming out, is Three Kingdoms. So really excited to kind of see what the Three Kingdoms are like outside of just, the 10 Thunders. And also the other allegiance that's coming out, if I'm not mistaken, it's an Oni allegiance. I think they're called the Komen. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think it's the Komen. And I'm very excited to see how that's going to play out, because if there's anything, if there's the Kimon, okay, the Kimon. I switched my vowels up there. But yeah, if there's anything I really like about the 10 Thunders faction in particular, I love the attention to yokai, or various like elements of, well, yokai are specifically, Japanese spirits, ghosts, etc. But also just the attention to a lot of aspects of East Asian folklore in general. So I really like kind of the way they've adapted some of those. And so I'm really excited to see what that's going to mean, how that's going to translate in the Kimon faction. Kimon. Oh, Kimon. Okay. All right. So I think that shading on the jacket is pretty good there. All right. So let's get into rebuilding her skin tone a little bit. So we're going to use this beige red. The skin recipe I'm doing here is one I tend to use on a lot of models. Typically, if I'm going to make models that I kind of want to play around with the skin tone quite a bit. So, get that on frame. Trying to make sure I get that in frame. All right, there we go. So, Vehicle Model Color Beige Red is what we're going to be using. We're going to rebuild the skin tone, just kind of the base tone there. And then we're going to mix a little bit of Ice Yellow into it, which is another Vehicle Model Color. There we go. And then, as we kind of keep working up on that, we're going to add a third color, potentially in varying amounts, which is some Game Color Glacier Blue. So this sounds a little strange, but this pretty much just kind of comes from a lot of color theory. We're in, your primary colors. You got your red, your yellow, and your blue. And mixing those pretty much gives you access to the other colors. So this is pretty much kind of playing off on that a little bit. I've generally found that I can get some pretty good results on this. If you want to see like an example of this skin tone on my Instagram page, which is down the bottom, the skin tone I did for Taylor is actually done using this kind of recipe. So we got to shake that up real good, because that beige red is thick. A lot of these skin tone colors I'm using, they are thick. All right, so I think I'm going to ditch the number 1, and I think we're going to switch over to some of the phalanx. So let's pick up the number 1 phalanx, and let's get to it. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's see. Oh, Karis's new sculpt looks amazing. Yeah, it's a good question. If that's your favorite sculpt of the new batch. But yeah, I really do like what I've seen with the new master sculpts. I did pick up, or at least order, one of the pre-releases. Let me know in the chat if you went in for any pre-releases. I think I was talking on Haunted's stream earlier that yeah, I think we can kind of quantify how big our haul was in terms of Jakunas. How many free Jakunas did you get with your purchase? So I think my Gen Con haul was about 2 Jakunas worth. Not as bad as it could have been if I was able to get the other side starter, but that sold out very quick. So good for the other side. I'm really glad that more people are kind of getting into it, and I'm really hoping to pick that up in the fall, along with some more King's Army, so I can actually build out my legions. In the meantime, I'll just have to try and borrow some friends' models and play with some of their allegiances. I think part of the reason I decided to pick up King's Army was just because it doesn't get any representation in my meta. Pretty much everyone there is Gibbering Hordes, Abyssinia, and Burning Man. All right, so I'm just kind of rebuilding the skin tone here. And here's something I'm going to ask the chat. So I'm still a little torn on what color I want Thrace's hair to be. So in the box art, she's got kind of a bit of kind of a brownish, a darkish brown color. That's what it kind of looks like to me. It's kind of thing of either giving her like a reddish brown color or possibly a black color. So let me know in the chat if you have a preference. If you'd like to see her hair painted black, or if you'd like to see her hair painted like a reddish color, more so a reddish brown. So let me know what you think while I'm kind of working on rebuilding some of these layers here. And I'm gonna have to wait for that paint to dry a little bit before I kind of go in on another layer with the skin. Skin tone I tend to treat very gently just because it's very easy for the paint to get piled on too thick and to kind of crack there. Let's see. So we got love Deacon Hillcrest. I wish he was usable on the other side. Well, I mean, if you're just playing friendly games, there's nothing to stop you from putting him there. But I will admit, yeah, that'd be really cool if Deacon at least had a counts as model, since he is with Burning Man. Let's see. Not sure you're allowed how to say how many Jakuna's worth of things you got. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's see, no, not yet. On a shoestring budget for hobbies. Black with blue highlights to contrast the coat will be good. Well, you know what? That is one vote for black, and that is exactly what I'm kind of thinking. It's a nice, good contrast, and it does still kind of go a little bit with the purple. Purple has some blue in it. That counts, right? That's coordinated. But all right, so that's one vote for black. So if anyone else wants to see black, or if anyone else wants to see red, let me know, and I'll start putting the base coats down for that. All right, so just want to make sure that I've got her over here. All right. Okay. So let me try to thin down that beige red a little more. Can try and get a couple more, just a little more around her forehead. So I don't want that shadow to be too deep around the edge of around her hairline. And I want to make sure I'm not laying this paint on too thick. Also, that I'm not ripping off any paint. All right, there we go. Got her ear kind of sculpted out there and her other ear right over there. All right. Very nice. Okay, so we're going to wait for that paint to dry a little bit. Yeah, you know what? I can hit her upper lip a little more. because there's still a little bit of that hull red showing from underneath. And a little more here on her brow. All right, and a little bit got into her eye socket there. Again, not too concerned about it because, I mean, obviously her eyes are going to be painted. And I want to keep some of those deep creases on the sides of her nose because obviously, you know, she's swinging this axe. She's, you know, very passionate, so she's going to have a war face. So come on, Samantha, show me your war face. That's right. That just reminds me of the old mini painting meme of the "Show me your war face," and it's just the Imperial Guard model that just has like the big bug eyes painted really thick. All right, but yeah, so I did pick up or at least order some of those. One of the new master boxes. All right, so real quick, as per what I'm doing here, I'm actually going to start base coating her hair. Since we got to vote for black, I'm going for black. So we're going to base it with one of my favorite colors to do black hair with, which is Reaper Math Series Coal Black. Let's see, when I heard the Breachside broadcast of her, I pictured her as a redhead. She reminds me of Sonya. Oh, okay, so we got to vote for red. All right, we're deadlocked, so I need one more vote. Are we going to base it with coal black, or are we going to keep this Doomble brown as a base coat for her hair? So let me know. I need one more vote. All right, I am going to break out a little coal black for another purpose here, which is basically to kind of shade in some of the areas in her eyes. So oftentimes I like to do this is I like to try to paint the eyes very early. Mainly because, you know, the eyes are where you're going to mess up a lot. So I like to paint in with some coal black. And then paint over that with a little bit of off-white. So we've got some... Oh, we lost the image for a minute. So just narrating what's going on there, I'm shaking up some vehicle model color off-white. Yes. Oh, it still seems to be on my side. Let me see if I'm... And we're back. All right. So where were we? Oh yeah, we're looking for a tie-breaking vote. So let's see. She's seen some. Yeah, let's see. Black with blue highlights would look great as well. She's seen some crap in her time. All right. All right. So that's 2 votes for black. So I'm gonna go with my. I'm gonna go with the coal black. So let's just quickly base coat her hair. All right, so coal black is one of my absolute favorite colors. If there is like any like must-have from like the Reaper range, I would say it's definitely coal black. One funny thing about coal black though is it is one of their Christmas colors. So traditionally, you can only really get it around Christmas time. So when Christmas rolls around, get yourself some coal black. It's a really useful color. I use it to, I use it as a base for black hair, obviously. I also use it as a base for a lot of like blackish blue colors. An example of that is on my Instagram. If you look at the Desperate Mercenary color scheme, I used the coal black to do the blue coat on him. And the other thing I use it for quite a bit is basically to paint the pupils of eyes and also to paint in the sockets of eyes because it actually makes for a good natural eyeliner. So it really makes those eyes, those eyeballs, pop. But yeah, so as far as the Gen Con swag, what I picked up as far as new masters, I picked up the new Ophelia Perdita box. I really, really like the new Ophelia model, and I also just really love the new Enforcer that they got. I really wish he wasn't exclusively guild because I would love to be able to hire him in other Bayou crews, but sadly that is not to be. I guess the powers that be figured that allowing Bayou to have like full access to the false claim action might be, I don't know, might be a little much. Who knows? But I really like that model, and I really like the sculpt too. I'd actually kind of be a little interested to know because when I look at the sculpt, he actually reminds me a lot of character actor Angus Scrim. If you're a horror fan, you might recognize him from the Phantasm franchise as the Tall Man. Sly Six Shots totally reminds me of the Tall Man, which is also just kind of another reason I really love that model. Something weird about the Tall Man being an arms dealer and supplying both sides of this conflict. Which, hey, again, the Tall Man, if you've seen Phantasm, he employed, he did not employ, he enslaved rather a weird group of like undead, like little people, minus the undead part, it's kind of like gremlins, right? All right. All right, so let's keep getting that black hair. Just paint it black. Yep, I know I promised no base coating, but hey. Okay, well, I didn't promise no base coating. I just said I tried to get most of the base coating done beforehand. All right, and so she's also got this little like, it's kind of like a little shock of hair that goes down the side here. And it goes down her shoulder. Kind of goes along here. All right, so just hitting the base coat on that. A little bit under there. And we're good. All right. Might have to touch that up a little bit, especially around the edges there. But again, I like to get a lot of the blocking in at this stage before I get a lot of those highlights in. Okay, so I'm already liking the way that looks with the black hair. Definitely creates a much sharper contrast. So I really like that. All right, very good. Yeah, as for other things, I actually ended up picking up, weirdly enough, I ended up picking up a couple of M2E boxes, actually, because I was hoping to get some of the models in them, namely some Survivors and a box of the old M2E Ronin, which I have some plans for. So let's see. All right. So let's get back to her eyeballs now that coal black is dry. And this is always a tricky step because, well, painting a very, very small detail. Not sure if I'll get that on frame. Okay. That's one. Okay. So there we go. Let's see if we can get that on camera there. But yeah, I managed to, don't know if we can focus on her face a little bit and try and get those eyeballs in focus. But yeah, so the whites on her eyes have been painted. Whoop. I don't know if we can, yeah, I don't know if I can get a better focus or not. Just trying to make sure I got her in frame. But either way, we got the whites of her eyes in there. So, and again, I tend to use that coal black around the edges to kind of give it a bit of a heavy liner effect, so to speak. So it tends to show pretty well. And then I'll usually follow it up with either a couple more little pokes of off-white, just kind of make sure that, you know, the shape is consistent and I'm kind of getting it where I want it to be. And the nice thing about that is if the eyeliner, so to speak, not like literal eyeliner, but if that liner is a little too dark, we can always just, at this stage, rebuild the skin tone with that beige red. So we can just kind of run a little bit of beige red along the bottom of her eyes there, so that doesn't look like she's got like a crying mascara look. Which I think is a little more prevalent on the other eye here. It looks like she's got a little bit of like a smudge at the bottom there. All right. All right, there we go. Excellent. All right, let's see. James, gotta go. Have a great stream. Keep the great work. Hey, thank you very much, James. Thanks for dropping by. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Hope you get some games in. Hope all of your Gen Con goodies come in if you order them. And if not, I hope you get what you want down the line. All right. Admittedly, I really like it a lot when models have like just one like area of skin showing, because then you can just kind of hyper focus on that a little bit and just kind of really work that skin tone. Okay. So something else I'm kind of doing here a little bit is I am kind of laying on this beige red a little thicker towards her cheeks, because obviously that's going to be more towards where we have more light, kind of towards the top of the face. We want to have a little more of like a focus on the cheeks, kind of the brow. So laying a little more of a layer down there will make those areas a little more brighter. So there we go. All right. And let's see. So with that skin tone, let's see there. I think I am going to put a little more, I'm going to push her hairline a little more, just because since we use that hull red to kind of shade there a little bit, I just want to make sure that, so I'm basically going from the shadow area and then just kind of stroking the brush down towards her brow so that the area of hull red that's showing is not quite so stark. We want to have a very subtle transition from the hull red to the beige red, and just kind of to have that hairline over there. Oh, I'm really digging the black hair. So thank you to the chat for chiming in, and I guess confirming my biases. I think the red would look amazing too, but I'm really getting into this black hair right now. I don't know, for some reason, like from a certain angle, she kind of makes me. It kind of makes me look like she's got a little bit of like a pompadour, like an area of what am I thinking of? When you think of like the when you think of like the stereotypical Yakuza and they just have like the big pompadours, I'm thinking more of like anime Yakuza as opposed to IRL Yakuza. Let's see. I plan on picking up the Court of Two set when I can. Oh, definitely. In fact, actually, I can give a quick little preview. Let me just grab him over here real quick. He's off camera. But in some time, I would like to get this fella here painted. I've got Bin Nguyen. And here's a quick look at what the model looks like. So make sure I get him on frame there. Yep. So here's kind of a quick look at Bin Nguyen. I haven't gotten him primed yet. So, but he has been prepped. I got the mold lines cleaned. I filled in the gaps. I had a little accident with his arm because I was a little too rough with it, but I reattached it. And so he's looking pretty cool. So I'm ready to get him primed now that super glue is dried. And he should be good to prime. And hopefully I will get him painted on stream as well. And let's see. Yep. Let's see. One area of skin. Painting thralls right now, and one is just wearing pants. That is true. That is true. I'm just kind of trying to think. What is the model? I mean, well, I usually come from painting a lot of Bayou, so I think the model I've painted that probably has the most skin showing. In Bayou, that's a good question. Oh, Swine Cursed, definitely. But yeah, so as far as like non-gremlin characters, I don't think I think the character with the most skin showing that I painted has probably been Bishop. I got the alt Bishop where he's just like roided out and just really beefy. So I think that's probably the model, the human model that I've painted that has the most skin within the Malifaux range right now. But I'm working my way through the mercenary keywords, so that will increase. All right. So let me know in the chat, what do you think is the model, the single model, doesn't have to be Malifaux, that has had the most exposed skin that you have painted? And it doesn't count if you say Kingdom Death, because any Kingdom Death model. All right. That's looking pretty good. So, all right. She's still got a little bit of a dark ring in that one corner. Let me just poke that. There we go. Yeah, I am really getting the hang of these phalanx brushes. I think the real thing is just they're not great for base coating because, you know, they are very fine brushes. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing there? I don't think so. So with that, I think we can work up her skin tone a little more. So we're going to start with the first first highlight on her skin tone. I mean, you know, first is kind of, you know, delete saying something from Kingdom Death. All right, so we're mixing up some ice yellow. I don't know why they call it ice yellow. I'm ignorant about that. And it's not even like a weird, like, lost in translation thing. It is literally called amarillo yellow, which literally means ice yellow. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I kind of wonder if it's kind of an archaic painter's term of some kind. Anyway, so yeah, get the palette on frame a little bit. So this is the part of painting skin tones that just gets a little experimental. I'm not really going with like a lot of ratios here per se. I'm just kind of mixing things up until it kind of looks to a point where I want it, which is pretty much, you know, what painting skin tones is kind of about. Because skin, regardless of the of how much melanin is in it, regardless of how, you know, of how pale it is, you know, there are so many like subtle gradations and changes in that skin tone that really make it distinct. So I'm kind of working like a bit more of a, you know, adding more yellow to make it a little more pastel up there, and a little more of that beige red to kind of make it a little more ruddy down here. Let's see. Sorry, my eyes aren't as good as they are, but Caress in the chat, I think some of the cool mini or not models for Wrath of Kings actually show more skin than Kingdom Death. I'm thinking of the regiment are Pelagarth infantry I painted that are just like in thongs. Yeah, there you go. Also, VMC 70.858 Ice Yellow is a powerhouse of paint. I agree. Like I was saying earlier, I use it to highlight red. I use it to highlight. I think you can use it to highlight almost any color. It's crazy, you know? So definitely in this, if you take two things from this, two really nice flexible paints to have, Coal Black from Reaper and Ice Yellow from Vallejo. Yeah, that Ice Yellow, it's magic. Glacier Blue I'm also quite fond of as well. That's also kind of a little magic as well. I also really do, I don't know, something about Glacier Blue. It looks like a paint that would be very tasty to eat. Like this looks like blueberry frosting to me. Like this should be on donuts, but you know, don't eat the Glacier Blue. As tempting as it might be. So the Glacier Blue is here because we can then mix that. We can put that further into our mixture here to make it further. If we want to push it to be a little paler. Now, in the case of Samantha Thrace, I kind of want her to have more of a sunny skin tone, so I think we're going to put more yellow into it than Glacier Blue. But for now, we want to play down in the lower part of that spectrum. So we're going to want to play a little more down here. A nice thing about this this particular, like, I hesitate to call it a recipe because it's not very like scientific. Let's see. I like VMC Smoke too because it has so much purple in it for brown. Ooh, yeah. Again, like I said, you know, purple. The more purple you can add into a color, I love my purple browns. I will admit though, I don't have that color. I've heard so much about it, but it's always sold out whenever I try to pick it up. And there's clearly a reason for that. Whoopsie. All right, so again, like with any highlight, we're gonna kind of start from the shadows and kind of pull our brush downwards, kind of create a little bit of a gradient. In the case of her cheeks, we're going to kind of pull from lower in the cheekbones and up to the top of them. If I'm getting folks' names in the chat wrong, my apologies. It's just I don't know, my connection's not super great. For whatever reason, it's just looking a little blurry when I'm trying to read the chat. So I'll do my best there. So if I don't call you out by name, it's because I can't read. All right, and then we want to be sure we hit where her neck is, because she's got that little bit of her neck poking out. All right. All right, very good. Okay, so I'm going to start pulling in a little more of that yellow in here. Let me know in the chat if there was one color that you wish was like a candy. which paint would it be? For me, it's Glacier Blue. I would totally, if Glacier Blue was a candy, I would totally eat it. Or rather, I want to see a Glacier Blue candy. All right, so pretty much the same thing. We're just mixing in a little more of that yellow, pulling it down on her brow. Kind of the areas on her face that we kind of want to highlight, of course, you know, her brow, her cheekbones, top of her nose, the bridge of the nose. Kind of want to hit that upper and lower lip a little bit. Kind of I don't know what you would call that, the ball of her chin. I don't know. She doesn't have a cleft chin, so I couldn't say cleft chin, but you know what I mean. When you have a chin, you got kind of that little, it's the chin ball. Oh, are we frozen? Oh. Okay, catching up there. Yep. Still a little blurry on my, I'm just going to refresh my browser there real quick. Just make sure I can see your comments. Oh, there we go. Candy paint, scale 75 Irati green, because I like sour apple candy. Sounds delish. Yeah, I haven't gotten into the scale color range too much yet. Again, because not a lot of places sell them. If I'd been able to make it to that store, you know, before like the last weekend it was in, I might have been able to snag some scale 75, but sadly it was not meant to be. Yeah, that's definitely something I always ask folks in the chat. If you have any specific colors that you want to recommend or color sets in the Scale 75 series, let me know. I'm always down to hear, you know, what are some good starter sets for some of those newer paints? Oh, okay, not newer paints, but, you know, newer to me because, you know, it's kind of hard to get them out here in the swamp. All right. I guess technically there is one place I know that does sell them, but it's a bit of a trek. So I kind of have to make some time for it. Although, I mean, I made time to go out to that other place. The reason I'd never been there before was because it was like almost an hour away. So I really should, when I have a moment, just, you know, kind of head over and just pick up some Scale 75 paints. I've been interested in trying them out. Okay. So skin tone is kind of working up a little more. We're going to add some more yellow. Just push some more yellow into that. Something else that's kind of cool is if you look at the box art. Oh, did we lose the image? Okay, got it back. But if you look at the box art, she has some scars on her face. So I'm hoping, you know, this will probably be a later step after laying down skin tones to maybe do some scars. But that's kind of more of like a finishing step as far as the skin tone goes. All right. So let's keep going there. Just going to pull that down a little more. Same thing we were doing before, just kind of working in the brow. To the nose, a little bit there. Very good. Let's see. I really like the artist colors that come in the tube. They've got really high body. I got the skin color set is the only one I got. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I've heard very good things about their skin color sets. Also, they have a red set, I think, that's also quite good. All right. Okay. All right, and so this is where the wet palette comes in really nicely, because ordinarily, you know, when you're kind of pulling paints across a lot of these things, a lot of these layers, you end up kind of chunking things up or peeling them off. But thankfully, you know, if we're delicate enough and we work quick enough, you know, I mean, what we're basically doing there is more or less a form of wet blending in a sense. I mean, I'm just kind of layering, but we pretty much don't get that situation wherein we're pulling off layers of paint. You know, we're kind of blending it enough. It's smooth enough that it's not going to create problems or get too chunky. Whoops. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. I think I slipped there a little bit. Let me see if I can soak that up. Okay, able to soak it up a little bit, but yeah. Oof. Yeah, not sure if you saw that, but I kind of got a little bit of the flesh tone kind of going over her eye, so it kind of looked like she had a little bit of a stroke at some point, and she had some sagging on her eyelid. I was able to wick it up with the brush, so it doesn't quite look so prominent. So, yeah, there we go. It's kind of another nice thing about using the wet palette is usually your paints are wet enough that if you need to fix something like that real quick, you can usually just kind of soak it up with a brush. Use that capillary action. Yeah, that's applying those 8th grade biology vocabulary words. All right. Oops, sorry, make sure I got her in frame. All right, let's go. Keep working it, working it. Okay. All right. Yeah, another nice thing with this approach with the skin tone is in a lot of ways you can do what you can basically do contouring. Like, not sure how many you find folks watch, you know, makeup tutorials, but I would actually say if you want to be a painter, you know, makeup tutorials are not a bad place to learn a little bit about, you know, painting. Because I mean, a lot of what makeup artists do is, you know, play with light and shadow. You know, contouring is kind of is more or less kind of what we're doing with a lot of times when we paint faces. All right. Okay. So I think, yeah, so it's getting a little too yellow there. So this is the part where I'm going to try mixing in a little bit of that glacier blue. And that is going to make it a little more pale. Oop, I think the paint might be a little too thin here, but let's see. Oh no. Uh-oh, I don't know what channel we're picking up because that is totally scrambled. All right. There we go. All right, so I've mixed a little bit of glacier blue. And so I'm just going to kind of hit the very tops of her cheeks with this. As well as a tip for nose. kind of some of the edges of her brow. And kind of the little line over there under her chin. Well, not really under her chin, but under her lip and at the top of her chin. And something else I kind of want to hit here are her ears. So just kind of hit her ears a little bit. It's such a small detail that I'm not going to bother building up more layers on it. We can just kind of hit it with just kind of the edge there. All right, and then a little bit on her neck. Just a little bit there towards, and there we're kind of painting a little more towards the bottom there because that's going to have more light on it than what's directly under her chin, her jawline. It's got a really strong jawline. Okay, and I think that's a good place to leave the skin tone for now. All right, let's see. I love that comic that is like, doing makeup is just like painting miniatures. The second panel is, oh wait, I'm bad at painting miniatures too. I think I have seen that one, but yeah. Yeah, it do be like that sometimes. All right. See if I can get her on frame here. It me. All right, let's see what we got here. If I can get that kind of into focus, we can kind of see. Yeah, not sure how I feel about it. I like it overall. She looks a little, I think getting her hair painted a bit more, and also I think painting some eyebrows will help because she looks a little Frankenstein-y to me right now. But I think some of the details that'll help will be, painting pupils in her eyes and also giving her some eyebrows. But I think that's something I might need to do off camera just because it's having to get in very, very close. All right, so let's start working on something else. Let's start working on her hair. So let's get a little work done on that. Yeah, painting miniatures is just like coloring hair. Except it's not. It's not anything like that. All right, let's get that in there. Yep. So I'm just kind of touching up some of these areas with the coal black. These are some areas that we just kind of missed when we were base coating. And these are some things that I'm not too worried about just kind of messing up just because, if it gets too bad, I can always kind of fix it off stream. When I can afford to get a little closer without beaning the camera with my head. All right, so that looks pretty good. So first thing we're going to do here with the hair is we are going to apply not a wash, but a little bit of a glaze. So let me see here. So there's a couple options that I like to do here. We can use either a dark sea blue from Vallejo Model Color. I think that might be a little too green for what I want to do. I do want some green in this, but I think that might be a little too green. Trying to get one that leans a little more blue. Oh, no, that's turquoise. No, that's even more green. But you know what? I'm not too worried about it because something I really like about Samantha Thrace's model is that she has sculpted hair. And the reason why I really like that is because when painting hair, oftentimes you have two different types. You've got the sculpted hair threads, and you've got what I call the blob cut, which is just kind of like a big mass that represents hair. And you can usually just kind of do whatever you want with that. But with sculpted hair strands, while it is a little more challenging, there's some nice effect, naturalistic effects you can kind of get there. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to put like a glaze of this dark sea blue. If you want to see an example of this specific hair color, on my Instagram, I just recently was painting Vanessa for the mercenary keyword. And I use this approach for her hair, but there's also an approach I often use for painting the hair on gremlins. Although with the gremlins, I usually push it more towards a blue, much closer to blue, just because, I mean, they're gremlins, you can kind of give them some more outlandish hair colors. So I'm actually gonna need a bigger brush for this. So let me wash that phalanx and put it to the side. And I'm going to grab, let's grab the number 1 round. And we are going to try to thin that a little bit. And I'm not too worried about getting it between the strands. I'm more interested in just kind of getting some saturation on this hair. So, whoop, a little too thick there. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of hit the hair with this. And this is going to kind of give it a little bit of a bluish greenish tinge. And we're going to kind of try to work it towards the top. So we kind of start from kind of the bottom of the hair and work our way up towards like the, what do you call that? Like the part or the crown. We also want to hit a little bit of that on this strand of hair that kind of goes down her front. And we also want to make sure we get that little, not exactly a sideburn, kind of looks like a little bit like a sideburn to me, but that little lick of hair that goes there. And on the back of her head, we do want to hit a couple of these as well. Just kind of hitting them there. And there we go. All right, cool. So, so now you're kind of looking at her hair and it's like, yeah, this hair looks, it's green. So what I generally do at this stage is, in order to prevent the hair from being too green, I'll take a little bit of black. In this case, I'm just using model color black. And thinning that down quite a bit, I'm going to then use a thinner brush. So putting away the number 1 round, and I'm going to grab a, what do I want to grab for that? I'm going to grab this 00 round. And we want to try to thin down that paint a little bit as well. So I'm going to grab a drop of water, put it over here, get that black in there. Kind of making a very thin black paint here. And what we're then going to do with that is we're going to kind of run that brush between the strands a little bit so that we're kind of, we're kind of rebuilding the shadows there and knocking that saturation from the green down just a little bit. So hopefully I can achieve this on camera. Let's see, And we do want to try to drag that going a little down towards the bottom of her hair strands, because obviously more light is going to be hitting the top of the hair where her crown is. Again, this is like a thing that's always thrown around on like so many like tutorials and things, but if you ever looked at like hair dye pictures, like pictures on hair dye boxes, they always kind of really exaggerate that like shiny crown around the top of the head. And so that's kind of what we can do here as well. All right. All right, so we're just kind of differentiating those. Differentiating them. I want to try to get that one there too. Whoop, my hand's shaking a little bit. That's not good. All right. Okay, and let me get the one on top of her head a little bit. And there we go. All right, cool beans. Okay. So now we kind of got her hair where it's got a little bit of like an edge to it. It's got a little bit of like a bluish greenish tinge to it. So now what I basically do here is I can use a little coal black. Put that over there. And we're then going to mix the coal black with another color. Whoopsie. All right. A color that's hiding over here. We're going to mix the coal black with some coal black because one good coal black deserves another. So this is the Formula P3 coal black, and when I get this on the palette, you'll see that it's a little different from the Reaper coal black. You'll notice that it's definitely got a bit more of a, it's got more of a greenish blue look to it. So we're going to mix, and if we're going to kind of get into like a ratio here, we're going to try to put like a little bit of the coal black in there. Okay. A little bit of P3 coal black into the Reaper black. And then we're going to just kind of run that along her hair strands. So let's see, that's a 00. Let's put that away. And I'm actually going to break out the number 1 again. So the number 1 from the phalanx range. All right, let's see. One important thing to keep in mind while painting any guild model is that they are a class traitor and will not be spared in the Glorious Revolution. You know what? Truer words could not be said. All right, let's see. But hey, you know, sometimes it's fun to play the bad guy, isn't it? All right. So pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm going to be running the strands, or rather, I'm going to be just kind of running that color, trying to pick out the individual strands a little bit. So for this, I kind of just use the side of the brush. And again, not too worried if I kind of miss a little bit and get some, you know, kind of in the recesses, just because I can always at the end go back and just redo that step where I put black back into those shadows. So just, oh, whoops, no, that's pure coal black. I want to get the mixture here. All right. All right. So yeah, just kind of trying to run that along the strands, kind of arc it along where the light would hit the hair. So running that there, running that there. Always running, painting that hair. All right. Okay, so now what we're going to do there is we're going to mix some, we're going to up the mixture. We're just going to put some more coal black of the P3 variety into the Reaper coal black. So at this point, I don't know, maybe kind of get it to like a 1-to-1 ratio possibly. Actually, not a little more than a 1-to-1 possibly. So let me get some more coal black in there. Ooh, I'm getting towards the more moist part of the wet palette, where paint tends to beat up a little more. Something I tend to notice oftentimes is more so close to the center of the wet palette is typically where it's just wetter. And where paints sometimes get a little too thin. All right. Okay, so let's keep building that up. So doing the same thing, but we're just going to hit a smaller area of the hair as we go. Okay, and we're going to hit that here too. All right, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to hit it with a pure coal black. Let's see, doing a quick time check. I think we got time to finish up her hair. We'll see how much more after that we can do. All right, so now I'm just putting a pure P3 coal black. Go and get that. All right, make sure that is on frame. And again, same thing as before. We're just kind of painting a smaller area of the hair. Again, we want to kind of drive it, our highlighting there from kind of the bottom of the strands, working our way up to the crown. So think of the crown as a point, or the part of the hair as kind of a point on the map. And all of the individual hairs are little roads that are running directly into that point. And your paint is a car traveling from the bottom, from south all the way up to that point. Okay, let me make sure I get some on that little, oops, that is not the pure coal black. Here we go. All right. And, oh, right, a little, yeah. I don't know what I would call that on her hair. It's not a ponytail or anything. It's just kind of like a little long lock that she's got on the side. I guess she's got kind of like a, well, she doesn't really have a fade because she does have a, she does have kind of a little sideburn over here. Just kind of wonder how she gets her hair quite like that. All right. Okay. All right. So now that we've got that layer done, I'm going to add a little bit of a wild card here, and let me grab that real quick. All right. So now we're going to get nuts. So we're going to add to the Formula P3 coal black some Citadel Lothrin blue. And we're going to kind of work our way up real quick. And I mean real quick because at this point the highlights are not very long. We're going to kind of work our way up a little bit to a Lothrin blue highlight. And let me kind of show you on the palette. We're kind of getting, yeah, we're getting a color that's a lot light. You know, it's much lighter here, obviously, because the Lothrin blue is going to lighten it up quite a bit. So we don't want to be, you know, too heavy-handed with these highlight layers here. Unless we want to give her a more punky look. If that's the case, then, like, you know, go for it. All right, so yeah, it's just kind of working those highlights here. Kind of want these to be, you know, kind of towards the top. So we're not really focusing on the bottom too much. Just kind of doing these short little strokes kind of around the top of her head. It's definitely much more of like a fantasy effect in a lot of ways. But I mean, you know, Malifaux is, you know, in a lot of ways a fantasy game. So always abide by the rule of cool. And in this case, I'm going to do a couple of these little highlights kind of towards her. I'm just going to call it like a front pompadour because it just makes me think of that. Let's see. Oh, we got something going on in the chat about Through the Breach. My Through the Breach character is just a gibbering hordes fish person who got a job as a barber because he loves eating hair. That kind of reminds me of like the barber in The Simpsons who pays Bart with an envelope of hair for sweeping up his shop. It's like, you're paying me in hair? What are you, crazy, man? Just looks at him, smiles, and laughs. I would love to know more about that character. So so I don't doubt, that. I guess what I'm just kind of wondering is, at what point did people come to trust the gibbering hordes fish person to just eat their hair? Like I'd be interested to know how that relationship builds up. So feel free to let me know more details. I love that character concept. I mean, I love any character concept that's a fish person, frankly. Even though I am playing, King's Army in Other Side, I mean, I do just love the look and style of gibbering hordes. But again, it's kind of like they're just kind of really overrepresented in my meta, so I'd like to just change things up a little bit. If I want to play gibbering hordes, I can always borrow a friend's model, or I can just dip into that faction as well. But one allegiance at a time. Okay, so we got that going. So now we're gonna mix a little more Lothrin blue into that previous mixture that we made. Kind of punching that up a little more. Let's see. Oh, they don't. That's why he wears the fake mustache. Barber Surgeon Hugh T. Man. Oh, I love it. It kind of reminds me, I do have a D&D campaign that's going on right now, which is in it's in the Acquisitions Incorporated setting, and I'm playing a Yanti Pureblood, and her whole shtick is that she basically is very much an infiltrator, but she's a bad infiltrator. It's very obvious to everyone that she's clearly like a snake person, but she's very much of the opinion, the behavior of just like, hello, fellow humans. It's like, why are you hissing? That's just a speech impediment. I'm very self-conscious about it. Of course, the severity of her speech impediment basically kind of ebbs and wanes with how much I feel like acting out all the hisses in her speech. But I do like characters like that, those very oddball characters. I would ask, what's the fake mustache made out of? Because I was just kind of wondering. That's a lot of self-control for him to resist the urge to eat it. I'm assuming it's not made of real hair. All right, so now we're going to dip into a little bit of a pure Lothrin blue. Doing a bit of an abridged version of this recipe, I can just kind of like, I don't know, I can just paint hair. I can just keep putting more and more highlight layers on something. There are a lot of times where it's just like, I think the ratio scaling is kind of a good way to just kind of tell yourself to stop. So let's see. Oh, it's how all us humans talk on the south side of the island. Yes, when asked about where she's from, she pretty much just says, I'm from someplace far away. And if anyone pushes further, she just says, and it's like, where far away? And he's like, you wouldn't have heard of it. It's called Florida. So I do enjoy settings that are just kind of just kind of wacky like that. I do enjoy Acquisitions Incorporated. This kind of like weird, like corporatization of adventuring. All right, let's get that little thing down here painted. I remember a long time ago, I had read an article. If there are any weebs in the chat, you might appreciate this, but okay, so the Lothrin blue, we're gonna mix it now with a little bit of off-white. And we're getting towards the end of our highlights of the hair. So kind of how it's shaping up. But I read a long time ago, there's one article where someone was basically kind of opining on what were the like best anime series in certain genres. And when they got time to get to the fantasy genre, and this was a very old article, so this is back when anime was not very mainstream. But this article, they got to the fantasy genre, and they started talking about how when you get to fantasy, at the time at least, this is before like Konosuba and isekai stuff, where just like every single other anime is like some schlub winding up in like a fantasy setting. Your two powerhouses in that genre were Record of the Lodos War and Slayers. And so when picking which of the two is the best representation of the genre, the author talked about Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, and about how every single person, when you are, setting up your role-playing game, people who grew up with Tolkien have a very specific idea of, oh, it's going to be just like Tolkien. And anime is kind of like that in a sense, where it's like, yeah, you want your campaign to turn out like Record of Lodos War, this very serious high fantasy epic with, great, powerful heroes and great evil and all this kind of stuff. But the actual thing is that your campaign instead ends up turning into Slayers, which is basically just the entire party is a bunch of selfish murder hobos who just kind of do what they want, and they get the job done, but they're not exactly the most ethical folks a lot of the time. So I kind of like that sort of interpretation of it. Okay, so you can kind of see here, we've got that highlight on the front there. Definitely going to have to go back in with some black between those strands in the front. Hope we can get a focus. Who knew? All right, well, so just so you know, after the stream, I will be posting a photo of this on my Instagram account. So if you want to see kind of a little bit of a sharper work in progress photo on how it's going to look, definitely check out my Instagram. It's just salty_Cbass. All right, so I'm just going to mix some more off-white with the Lothrin blue. And then after that, we're just going to do some tiny little specks of off-white pretty much around the crown of her hair. Oop, we get that back? All right. Yeah, so if you are if you're an anime fan, let me know what fantasy show kind of sculpts your expectations of D&D, if there is one, or just anything that just kind of shapes your expectations of any role-playing game, whether it be Through the Breach, or D&D, or what have you. I am hoping to get a little more into Through the Breach. I just haven't really had anyone I can run a campaign for. I recently got my hands on the core books. So, the Fated Almanac and the Fate Masters Almanac. And I'm hoping to read through them a bit more in depth this weekend, actually. I'm getting a little bit of time off this weekend, so I'm hoping to just kind of have a relaxing time in the remote wilderness with, just some books to read and some friends to hang out with. So, hopefully I can kind of read a little more of some of those source books and hopefully just kind of, get the tools I need to run a game. So let me know in the chat if you've run through the breach. What do you think would be a good starting adventure to just kind of start some total noobs on, especially people who have like never done anything Malifaux related, which is likely going to be the group I'll be playing with. So let me know in the chat if you have some good suggestions for some of the either the Penny Dreadfuls or any other published adventures. I know that Wyrd Chronicles had quite a few good ones as well. No Strings Attached is what's recommended. Oh, tell me about No Strings Attached. Let me see. Caress Anime, definitely Berserk, but we already established I paint Kingdom Death. Yeah. Kingdom Death is very much, Kentaro Miura, man. R.I.P.D., dude. Kingdom Death definitely would not exist, I think, without his work. Let's see. The RPG I'm into is Wicked Ones, where you play dungeon monsters instead of heroes and lure stereotypes in to steal their stuff. Oh, I always love a good monster RPG, or even just games kind of built on that premise. Boss Monster is always kind of a big favor of mine on that, in terms of it being very easy to learn and very easy to play. Weirdly enough, I think I've played Boss Monster on, like, for some reason, if I'm ever in a situation where I am on a date and we're playing board games, Boss Monster always gets brought up, and it's always a pretty good time. So that is, so I don't know, Boss Monster I always find, weirdly enough, kind of a good date night board game. All right. Let's see. Also, we have an Acquisitions Incorporated joke group that comes by who used to be a major player until they fell apart to infighting and bureaucracy. Nice. But yeah, No Strings Attached. I will have to look into that. I'm assuming it's very puppet related. So feel free to let me know if you've played No Strings Attached. Yeah, I'll probably be playing it as as the not caught up on the lingo, the fate keeper, fate maker, fate master, the GM. All right, so this is looking pretty good. I like the way this looks. The one thing is, I think the highlights on the front are maybe a little off. So I think I'm just gonna have to darken them a little bit, or possibly just run a little bit of that black paint in between some of the strands on the front. So let me see if I can pull that off here. Okay, a little bit. Ooh, got a little bit of delay there. Should be on frame. Okay, let's see if we can kind of get that focus there. All right. Okay. All right, so we got the hair, we got that skin tone built out. So I think now, let's see, we got about 9 minutes left. I think we can start building out just a little bit of the coat. So let me just quickly grab I'm going to grab the biggest brush that I've got in the Phalanx set, which is actually the number 3 round. Actually, no, that's too big, to quote Hans Moleman. Let's see. Yeah, but I think it's the one I'm after. No, let's use the number 1 round. Yeah, okay. All right, so on that coat, we're going to rebuild some of the base color a little bit, not with Gory Red, but with a little bit of Mephiston Red from Citadel. So let's see. After running afoul of some Silurids while in search of Zoraida, the fated wake up puppets and find themselves in the midst of a war between 2 different puppet groups. Oh, so it's basically Puppet Wars. Nice. All right, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, something I definitely like about Through the Breach is the character creation. I know that for some people, I think it can be maybe a little frustrating to kind of like have to build your character around to kind of get the concept first and then build the character around. But I think it's also a good way to introduce new players to the system as well. All right, so we're doing here, I'm just going to kind of running the Mephiston Red kind of along the highest areas here. We're just kind of building kind of a new mid-tone along this thing. All right, keep building it, building it, building it, getting it that way. All right. Keep going with it. Yep, so pretty straightforward. I mean, we're just kind of painting along the areas that are not in those deep purple creases. And we're just kind of trying to build up a very solid base coat here. Because obviously with the airbrush, our base coat is very transparent, which also makes it really good for laying down those shadows earlier on in the process. Okay. So Mephiston Red, definitely a favorite color of mine in the Citadel range. I tend to find it gets a lot of utility because it's just a very nice, like very saturated red. I think the only other red that I've really come across that's kind of comes close to it is another red that's in the, it's actually in the, another one of those Reaper Christmas colors, which is Holly Berry. So I use that one quite a bit as well in conjunction with Eldritch Purple and Ice Yellow to kind of make some interesting reds. So point of reference, like on my Instagram, I also use that kind of color combination in a couple places. Actually, was on Taylor's blouse, which I painted a red color with those yellow highlights. And then also on one of the Banjanistas that I painted up, the one wearing a red dress. Well, I made her wearing a red dress. On the box art, I'm pretty sure her dress was kind of a brownish color. But I like to put a lot of red with my gremlins because it's a good complement to their skin tone. It also makes them look a little festive, I suppose, but hey, I don't know why Christmas has to have the monopoly on red and green color schemes. But either way, I'm looking very forward to the fall. Let me know if you're more of a summer folk or a fall folk. I'm much more of a fall folk. I prefer the moderate temperature and all the fall activities as opposed to summer. Although that's kind of saying a lot. Because I am kind of going to the beach this weekend. But I mean, it's kind of at the end of summer, so it's a lot more temperate. It's more about just walking along the coast. Gosh, on that note, like, man, there's so many subcultures of goth. Like, is beach goth a thing? Like beach goth should totally be a thing. Let's see. I like the green red color, but I always struggle with it going, Christ, it looks like Christmas. Yep. I do enjoy Christmas, but at the same time, I'm much more of a Halloweeny. But yeah, like, beach goth should totally be a thing, I mean, I know some people will be like, oh, but the beach is not gothic, but I'm like, no, you're thinking about the beach all wrong, Like, I mean, okay, think of it in the sense of like the thing that like terrified Lovecraft, like H.P. Lovecraft the most. One of the things that terrified him the most, because the man was scared of literally everything and everyone, was the ocean. So seriously, what is more terrifying and evocative of like dread and fear than the deepest unknown depths of the ocean? So I'm just saying, beach goth should be a thing. So I'm saying we ought to make it a thing. But I think it just needs a better name than beach goth. So if you got any suggestions in the chat for my new beach themed gothic subculture, feel free to let me know in the chat. Almost makes me feel like I should do like, I should do like a diorama on that, on the idea of like kind of goths at the beach and kind of how you would have like a beach goth aesthetic. Let's see. We know more about the surface of the moon than we know about the bottom of the ocean. That is very true. Because I mean, yeah, we've actually been to the surface of the moon. We haven't really been to the deepest depths of the ocean. At least no man. All right. Okay. Whoops. Let's see. Done about beach goth, but I know pastel goth is thing. Oh yeah, totally. Pastel goth and is that distinct from candy goth? Actually, yeah, it is. Yeah, pastel goth is a thing. Candy goth is a thing. Cyber goth is a thing. Man, let me tell you, man, cyber goths were really ahead of the curve when COVID came around, man. Whew. They already had their respirators on. Hell, cyber goths were still raving, man. But yeah, there's so many subcolors. I'm gonna I guess we'll do the Forrest Gump joke. Let's see. Got cyber goth, pastel goth, candy goth, corporate goth. I've run out of goth. But I know there's so many others. I do know corporate goth is a thing, which actually has a rather nice aesthetic. It is rather interesting. It's based a lot on like on like suits and high collar like business wear and stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting aesthetic. All right. Yep. So we're just kind of just slowly building up this layer here. Kind of just giving it a sweep and then just kind of moving on to the next part and coming back to the others as the rest of these sections dry. All right. Something else I've kind of noticed is Thrace has like this little like, it's kind of like a scarf or like a high collar thing here. I'm not quite sure what color to paint it yet, but we'll get around to it. But yeah, all right. So I think for some of these other areas, I'm going to switch brushes because she's got some of these very nice creases and folds. And I do have to say again, just like bravo to Wyrd for like the details on these fully assembled other side kits. They're pretty damn good. Like the material that they're made from is not quite as brittle as I would hope. But it keeps detail very nicely, and it reacts to heat very well if things get bent. So in the case of Samantha Thrace, her axe was a little bent, but again, you just put it in some hot water and it just like practically corrects itself. It's really, really good. So I do appreciate that these pre-assembled sculpts do keep quite a lot of detail. All right. Nice. Awesome. All right. Let me see if I can get that on the other side. Paint's thinning out a bit on the palette. Let's get a little more on there. Excellent. But yeah, let me see. I don't think I finished going through the Gen Con shopping list. Let's see. So yeah, I did pick up. I did order the Ophelia Perdita box, or at least I guess as I'm kind of thinking of it, you know, the Ophelia and Sly Six Shots box. I picked up a box of second edition Ronin and Survivors, because I think those are one of the few models in the Trixie keyword that I actually don't have painted. And I also picked up, of course, since Halloween is coming up, I picked up the Rotten Harvest boxes. So really psyched to kind of see them in the flesh, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to maybe painting those up around this Halloween season. I'm hoping to do some Halloween streams, just kind of on my personal stream as well. And hopefully, maybe in October, I can get some of those painted on the Play Wyrd stream as well. I'm especially very fond of the Witches of the Wood sculpts, especially the one who's kind of like climbing on the tree and kind of like sort of fusing with it. I really like that sculpt quite a bit. And I really do want to see, you know, how that bewitched cauldron looks. I did get to see the some images from Gen Con on that sculpt. It looks really nice. So I'm interested to see how it kind of looks scale wise next to a lot of things, because one thing I really do like about the new Zoraida box is how massive Bad Juju is. Like, it's kind of like, originally when I saw that sculpt, I was kind of like, okay, it's a really cool sculpt. It didn't quite look as detailed as the original Bad Juju, but then I'm just like, oh my God, this thing is huge. It's just spilling off its base. It's massive. It's got a boat in it. So yeah, I really love all the Bad Juju sculpts. And I'm interested to see how the Bewitched Cauldron's going to look. So really like that. And I really do like the Kinderbaum. I think the Kinderbaum are kind of an interesting little take on having your Will-O-Wisps. It reminds me especially of it's a podcast that I used to listen to quite a bit called the No Sleep Podcast. It's basically just a Scary Stories podcast. And there was a great story on there once specifically about a Will-O-the-Wisp. And, you know, the whole point is that it you know, manifests itself as, you know, as a young girl that befriends this boy. And so for some reason, like the Kinderbaum remind me a lot of that story. So I'm really looking forward to getting those Rotten Harvest boxes as well. And of course, I got you know, a copy of Malifaux Burns, which on that note, if anyone's seen any of the spoilers, weigh in and let me know, what are you most excited about as far as new master titles? I feel like that's something I should have started out with, like towards the very beginning. But I'm very, very excited about the new Wong title. If you haven't seen Wong's new title, he is Wong the Enchanter. So I won't say too much else about that, but I really like what I've seen with it. And I'm really looking forward to playing Wong again in 3rd edition after having a bit of a hiatus with him. All right, so here's what we got so far. If I can kind of get the frame to catch up and get that on frame. There we go. All right, so basically got her painted up. So we got some really nice highlights here. Definitely got to soften those edges on the part of her coat that's flapping up. But all the other creases, they look really phenomenal. So once again, definitely putting a picture of this work in progress up on Instagram. So feel free to follow there and take a look. I also generally just post a lot of updates about the Play Wyrd stream. Sharing a lot of the other folks' work. We've got a lot of really great painters on the on the stream, and I'm flattered and happy that I can be considered to stand among them. If you haven't been watching the stream, definitely check out some of the other folks we got here. We've got Ashenhold Painting. Ben is a really sweet guy. He's also got a stream of his own. And Ben's just got such a great voice. I'm glad you guys are putting up with my shrill nasal affectation. Ben's just got such a soothing voice. Love his voice. Love his work. Great guy. Eleanor is super talented and paints some gorgeous models. She's also, pretty, has an Instagram account as well with a lot of good pictures. So does Ben. And, Haunted Miniatures, absolutely great. Super great guy. I raid his stream pretty regularly because we tend to kind of stream around the same time, but I tend to end earlier than he does. Really great guy, really sweet. And, and of course, you've got What the Foe. Wotek is, a really good painter as well. And of course, Big Deno Miniatures, who I haven't been able to catch any of his streams live yet, but he is very talented. So I hope I didn't miss anyone. I think that's all the painters that we have coming up. And of course, there's myself. As usual, you can check me out on the Play Wyrd stream or on my own stream, which is just, Twitch, twitch.tv/salty_Cbass. Same as my Instagram handle as well. And that's pretty much where I put my art for the time being. All right. Let's try to soften some of these sharp edges here on the creases. And let's see. I think we got a bit of a 5-minute warning there. She is shaping up really nice. All right, so okay, just trying to soften up this edge here a little bit. So basically just kind of putting the tip of the brush into that purple crease and just kind of running it outward towards the edge of her coat to kind of just feather it a little bit. We do want some of those stark transitions as well. We just want to feather it a little bit. Because while there is that crease there, it is still like an elevated and raised part of the coat. So more light is going to be hitting that part. Man, I love the pose there with her coat just kind of flying up. It reminds me a lot of okay, here comes my random movie knowledge just kind of coming in. But if anyone remembers, there was that action movie where it was, I want to say it was Antonio Banderas versus Lucy Liu, and it was just called Ballistic X versus Sever. And I just remember one of the reviews of that film. I want to say it was the Roger Ebert review, or it might have been a local film critic. But they basically said that the real star of the movie, or the best actor of the movie, basically is are the trench coats. Because that movie was just all about it was very much around the time of the Matrix. It was just a lot of assassins doing really cool things in black dusters and trench coats and constant wind and billowing trench coats everywhere. So I don't know, it makes me think a little bit of that with with kind of her coat just kind of flying off to the side. But yeah, I really do like the pose. Very dynamic. You do kind of get a good feeling of some oomph being put towards there. She's really driving forward, about to just slash someone. So yeah. All right, so let's see. I don't think we're going to be able to get to more of the coat. But basically what I'm going to do next with the coat is pretty much add to that Mephiston Red a little bit of Game Color Bloody Red, which is distinct from Gory Red. And I feel like the way you can kind of tell the difference there is actually in the Spanish titles, which again, I feel, there's so many, important things about learning other languages, but another good part of that is that you know what the Vallejo colors really are. So, rojo visceral, gory red, that's the guts. This is the red for painting the guts. Rojo sanguina, that's for painting the blood, So that's the real difference. This is your guts, that's your blood. And together, they make blood and guts. All right. How are we doing on time? I think we got like 1 minute. Should we start wrapping up? All right. All right, cool. Yeah, well, you know what? I think Samantha Thrace will return. Definitely gonna, I think definitely, a future stream can work on Samantha Thrace. All right, so with that, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Really happy to show you this brand new model from the other side. I believe she'll be available for, if you didn't get her at Gen Con, she'll be available for sale in October, I believe, alongside the new starter box for the other side. So with that, thank you very much for joining me. Glad you stuck around, had a little bit of chat, talked a little bit about this mini, D&D, other side, Through the Breach, and just wherever our pursuits may take us. So again, like I said, be sure to keep your eyes on the Play Wyrd streams. Watch all the great painters there. So many great painters. We got the best painters. They're the best. Yeah, check out my Instagram. That's at Salty Cbass, and also my Twitch channel at Salty Cbass. I usually stream on Saturdays. Not this Saturday though, because I'm taking a vacation. But I generally try to get there at least every Saturday around 8 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, just check it out, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. Good night.